Browns fans, if you guys wish Cleveland was playing football this weekend instead of golfing in Cabo, then go ahead and like today's video because I'm still thinking about how much more fun it was last year watching Ben Roethlisberger cry on the bench after the Steelers got their asses kicked by the Browns in Pittsburgh in the first round. I wish we're at the same spot this year, but hopefully next year we're talking about playoff football in January, not talking about offseason stuff. But let's get into today's show. But first, give us a like. Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. Coming up on today's show, we got some rumors to talk about. We'll glance at some quotes Kevin Stefanski gave us after he went on 92.3 The Fan, talked about Baker Mayfield, and I don't know if he gave him much of a vote of confidence, honestly. And then later on in the show, we'll look at whether or not Jarvis Landry or D'Ernest Johnson will be playing in Cleveland next season. We'll take a peek at their contracts and see how likely it is that those two guys come back as Brownies next year. But first, Kevin Stefanski, like I said, hopped on 92.3 The Fan the other day, and he talked about Baker Mayfield. And here's what he said. He goes about their relationship. It's good. We talked. He's going to get surgery, which is huge for him, and he can start the rehab process here and get ready to jump back into it. But Baker and I think we work well together. I respect him. He respects me. I push him. And he would go on to say he understands how we operate. We've had 2 years together, and I think as a team, we've certainly just had our ups and downs. But I do think that we push each other, and there's definitely a level of respect there. Well, that sounds super reassuring. I mean, of course your head coach is not going to bash his quarterback on local sports radio, but you'd like to see Kevin Stefanski, pump up Baker a little bit, right? Make Baker put on a bit of a pedestal rather than, I think we worked well together. You think? You need to work well together. This is the head coach and quarterback combination here we're talking about. And after reports came out of a riff and Baker squashed those reports and Stefanski said they're not true, I'd like to see a little more confidence and a little more spine out of Stefanski other than I think we work well together. But this season was, I wouldn't say disaster, but I would say it was probably the most underwhelming season of any NFL team in terms of their expectations. And the Browns went from winning a playoff game last year, not just making the playoffs, but winning a game in the Big Dance to being eliminated before Week 18. And with that all said, I want to ask this question. I've asked it before, and I've seen mixed responses. And so maybe your thoughts have changed. Maybe you're sticking by your guns, Pierre. But who is the bigger culprit for the Browns' 2021 season just not living up to expectations? Is it Kevin Stefanski or is it Baker Mayfield? This will be the pinned comment on today's video. So if a YouTube ad break comes on by, give me your KS for Stefanski or a BM for Baker Mayfield. I'm leaning more Baker's direction. I understand that he's injured, and I do believe that without an injury, this season is completely different, and I attribute a lot of Baker's shortcomings to the injuries that plagued him all year long. I mean, hopefully next year he's fully healthy, and we never have to talk about moving on from Baker again. But at the end of the day, Stefanski was crippled literally and figuratively in the sense that his starting quarterback goes down with injuries. His right tackle and his entire offensive line at different points misses time. He's missing Chubb for periods of time. He misses Kareem Hunt for a stretch. He loses Odell Beckham Jr. for a good chunk for the second half of the season. He loses Jarvis Landry for a good chunk of the season. Schwartz. The injuries go on and on. The Browns were the most injury-riddled team, but they were closer to the top half than the bottom half, that's for sure. And so that's why I think Baker, he needs to bring it more next year rather than Stefanski has to bring it more, because Stefanski has a lot more in his arsenal of viable excuses. And it's not like Baker doesn't have viable excuses, but for Baker, when you're the starting quarterback and you're out there, then you have the expectation of going 100% or maybe even 90%. But Baker played more like 20% at times. And I get it, you're injured. But you can't go in front of the podium and say, I've never felt better in my life. This is the best I've felt since week 2, and then suck the next week, and then all of us are expected to just go, well, he's injured. I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? You can't say, I never felt better, I'm playing my best football, and then when you play crap and we all go, oh, he's injured, right? That's not fair. All right, let's get to the second half of the show right now. Some on the bubble players who may or may not be returning next season. The biggest name is Jarvis Landry, under contract, and I would love to see him be a Cleveland Brown next year. I want to see him finish his career in Cleveland, but I don't know how likely that is, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But if you want Landry, if you want number 80 to come back to the Browns next season, then go ahead and subscribe to the Browns Report. And here's the deal. I did this pitch a couple days ago to keep Jadeveon Clowney in Cleveland, and I wrote a letter just 2 days ago, and I put every single person's name that subscribed at the bottom of that letter. It looked like the Declaration of Independence. I want that to be 3 times the size for someone like Jarvis Landry, who has put in a culture of success more than recently and winning and just competitiveness in Cleveland from day one at practice to on the field. So if you're new to the channel, go ahead, subscribe, and that way I can get you on that letter to keep Landry in Cleveland. And if you've already subscribed, go ahead and comment number 80. That way I know that you also want to keep Landry in by the lake. All right, the other person was D'Ernest Johnson. So Landry and D'Ernest Johnson are the 2 bubble-ish names along with Clowney, but we'll talk about these 2 offensive guys today that may or may not be back next season. So first, Landry, he's entering the final year of his contract, and he is set to make a big $16.5 million towards the cap next year. If the Browns release him before June 1st, they only have to pay $1.5 million. That's about $15 million in savings. That's a good chunk of change. So good that Andrew Berry will have to look into it. Now, maybe/hopefully the Browns will try to restructure Landry's contract to keep him in Cleveland. We'll talk about him more in a second. D'Ernest Johnson, though, he's going to be a restricted free agent this offseason, and I expect he'll have a lot of suitors. He'll be going into his 4th season, and this year with a limited time, he outperformed a lot of running backs that were RB1s on their team. I mean, look at like the Dolphins, for example. Duke Johnson, remember him? He had to come in and save the day in Miami down the stretch. I don't see a likely path for him to return. Look, before we get to them, let me tell you guys about our sportsbook partner, BetUS. They are powering today's show, and they're hooking you up with a 125% deposit bonus for going to chatsports.com/bet. Using that promo code right there, Browns125. Listen, of course, you can't bet in the Browns. But I am gambling some decent cheese. I'm talking like $10-15 because my wallet's not that deep. On the wild card round this week, here are my 3 top picks. I like the under in the Pats-Buffalo game. Last time, they threw like 5 passes combined pretty much. And I get it, that was a little different. But still, the high in Buffalo this weekend is 9 degrees. Yeah, give me the under. I'll take the Eagles plus 9.5 at the Bucks. People kind of forget that these 2 teams played on Thursday Night Football like back in October. And the Bucks beat the crap out of the Eagles. But it's tough to beat a team twice handily, so I'll take the points and then gas the over. Up in the Cardinals-Rams game, an NFC West showdown in the playoffs. Yeah, that's going to be an absolute shootout. Make your bets. Ride with me at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Browns125. Back to the Jarvis Landry story here, because that's probably the biggest name of these 2 here, probably, definitely. Landry could go either way in terms of whether or not he will return next year. I believe Jarvis Landry does want to return next season, but maybe not. We'll show you a quote in a moment that hopefully doesn't indicate otherwise. But Landry, he's got that big cap hit, and I don't think the Browns want to pay that. If that doesn't change, I don't see Landry coming back next year. I don't see Cleveland taking on a $16.5 million cap hit for Jarvis Landry. But if you had to pick one between Landry and D'Ernest Johnson to return next season, who would you pick? Drop a JL if you want Landry, or give me a DJ if you want D'Ernest Johnson. Personally, I would love to see Landry back. That's kind of a no-brainer. D'Ernest Johnson, happy trails to him, but we're pretty good at running back in Cleveland. Between Chubb and Hunt, wide receiver, very different story. Now, Landry's career in Cleveland, the numbers don't do it justice in terms of he came in here and he helped turn this culture around. It kind of reminds me of a coach going to a college football program and turning it around, going from 0 wins to 10 wins immediately. And I get they didn't go from 0 to 10, but the way they were just practicing. I mean, everything about the Browns today and the success they've had in the last couple of years compared to the long stretch beforehand, a lot of it originates with Jarvis Landry. So the question is, would Jarvis Landry take a pay cut? Does he... I am guessing he knows he's not worth $16.5 million, but he could also go, hey, I've given this franchise a lot. you can pay me the last year of my contract and we'll go on other ways. Hopefully, the Odell Beckham Jr. saga didn't upset him so much. It definitely upset him, but so much to the point that he was looking to get out of town after the season and just meet up with his buddy elsewhere. Because after OBJ was released, first off, two things happened. One, Jarvis Landry never spoke to the media again. That's not super reassuring. And number two, he had this quote, which was pretty blunt and to the point. Definitely was something that hurt. Still does. These two guys were best friends. They went to LSU together. They grew up 50 miles apart in Louisiana, reunited in Cleveland. I mean, honestly, think about it this way. Imagine if you and your high school, your college best buddy got different jobs and then were reunited and then one of them left. Like, you'd probably be a little upset too. So upset that you'd want to leave the team? I don't know. You can ask Jarvis or Landry if you're watching. Comment below. Let me know. But I hope that riff after OBJ's departure, because it kind of seemed like they picked sides, and I don't know if Landry liked the side that they picked, doesn't upset him too much. But let's talk about D'Ernest Johnson really quickly before we wrap up today's show. I don't see a way he's going to come back next season for what he's going to want on the free agency market and what he deserves too, because look at the numbers he put up this season. Those are not the numbers you expect from an RB3. 534 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 5.3 average for a guy who was sitting behind Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's pretty dang good. You will not find those numbers across many RB3s. In fact, if you put him in other teams, he'd be imagine him on like the Ravens, for example, who, thank God the Browns didn't cut him before the season. He would have ran all over the place for Baltimore. Same for Miami. Now, I don't think it's likely the Browns will pay his price. I think when Johnson hits restricted free agency, that means the Browns will have an opportunity to match any offer. And if a team comes in and wants to pay him, not RB1 money, right? Not close to that. But if they want to give him a 3-year, $15 million contract, the Browns aren't going to pay him $5 million a year to be third string. They're going to go, hey, happy it worked out well here, and I'm happy that you were able to land yourself a bigger contract, but it's not going to happen in Cleveland. All right, to wrap up the show, I want to ask this question to you guys. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? What's your pick? I pray I'm not seeing Steelers predictions down there because I still wish that tie happened and they were not even in the big dance. My prediction, I'm going Rams versus Bills. I think the Rams are the kind of team that when they're playing their best, they can make a run, kind of like the Bucs did last year, right? They all just got to get hot at the right time. And the Bills, I just don't want to see the Chiefs again. So I'll go with the Bills there. But let me know your predictions down below, and we'll catch you later here on the Browns Report.